Hey everybody, welcome back to Elemental Cartomancy. I'm here today to do a walkthrough of the Zombie Oracle by our very own ORSI from the channel Dragoshi's Tarot. I'm really excited to do this because I've actually had a chance to work with this a wee bit and I think it's an amazing deck. I really enjoy just the theme of it and let me tell you, I am not someone who's into like zombie films. In fact, I generally tend not to enjoy them. I am, but this, this isn't just like I don't know. It is a bit of a different vibe to it. I think. Like you don't have to be into zombie films and that kind of a thing to like and to work with this deck. Um, to give you an idea of the size of it, here is a standard Smithwaite size tarot card. So you can see that they are bigger, as oracles generally tend to be. And it's this is you can get this on Make Playing Cards, and I'll of course put a link in the description to it. Um, this is Make Playing Cards Standard Smooth S30 cardstock. So it's beautiful cardstock. It's really kind of a nice and glidey. But we'll talk a bit more about how like it shuffles and stuff soon. Um, let's do a quick flip through. What I'm going to be doing is just sharing my thoughts on the cards as I flip through them. Now, I have not gone through and read in depth Orshi's descriptions of the card or her interpretations of the cards in her guidebook. I am on purpose. I wanted to get my own impressions of them before I do that. I've read the intro and I've got the guidebook downloaded and ready to read. Um, when I've kind of done this and when I've worked with it a bit, but it's one of these ones I'm finding that just going off my own intuition and how I take the cards is working quite well for me. So these are the card backs. It has this kind of is that the toxic sign? Is that what that is? And it also has this kind of a writing in the background as well. Really, really nice, really well done, and it works really well for the theme of the deck. I have put the cards into the order that they appear in the guidebook. Given that I'd been working with them, they were all well shuffled. So I've put them back into the order that they appeared in the guidebook. So that's the order that I'm going to go through them in. So we start off with Bite Mark, and if you're unfamiliar with anything to do with zombie, um, you know, folklore, if that's even the word you want to use, um, when you're bitten by a zombie, that's when you get the virus and you become a zombie yourself. Okay, so it all starts off with the bite mark. Um, so I mean, this could be a kind of a beginning type card, I suppose. This could be the start of something new. Given that it's bite mark, you could also be thinking about, the impact that one thing has on another. Depending on the question, we could be looking at the impact that we have on the planet around us. We could be thinking cause and effect. You could go into all of that with it, just that kind of a mark that it's almost like a kind of a footprint, how we assert ourselves onto, you know, everything outside of us. The colours in the card are absolutely stunning. I love how um, it's almost like a neon blue, the bite mark here. And just the way that the colours pop in this card is really, really nice. So we have a brain here, and the caption, use it. Um, Zombies are known for eating brains, um, so it fits in with the kind of a general theme. But obviously, with the caption, use it, it doesn't bring to mind food and sustenance. It brings to mind, use your mind, use your brain, use your intelligence, use, what you've been given in this world. As humans, we've got the ability to, to think, to understand, to problem solve, to work through issues, and come up with, solutions that suit the problem. We have the ability to connect with those around about us, and work together as, use teamwork to our advantage. Um, So this for me is a card about using our natural kind of a proclivities, I suppose. Chaos. Chaos is an important concept for me, just in general in divination. I think we all come from chaos, and that's where we all return to. Um, and yeah, like obviously the what we're seeing depicted here, and like probably what this is intended to, um, to speak to as when we get into like this kind of a mass panic, this mass hysteria. When something's going wrong, when there is some sort of pandemic, for lack of a better word. Obviously at the start of the coronavirus pandemic, everyone was going batshit crazy and buying enough toilet roll to last them 10 years, So it's that kind of a chaos, but not just the chaos itself, but what it leads to, what it leads people to do, people's actions that come out as a result of the chaos. Clarity, and we see the moon in this card here. And this is a really beautiful, stunning card. Um, so just kind of we get the idea of these moments of clarity. We're in the dead of night, and yet through the moon we see some of the sun's light. So we're getting that light shone on situations where otherwise we would be in complete darkness. So this is to me a card about wisdom. It's a card about knowledge and wisdom, and it really strongly links in with cards like the High Priestess, the Hierophant, the Hermit. Those kind of a cards from the tarot. Company. Okay. So working together with those around about us, kind of a strong Three of Pentacles feel this card has to it. So you can see in the depiction, this person is kind of a holding the zombie armies at bay whilst this person kind of a climbs up, and out of harm's way. So they're working together, in order to achieve a goal that they couldn't achieve separately. So the importance of teamwork and working together with those around about us. Fake news. So this just kind of, I suppose, speaks to the importance of really kind of empirically, is that the word? But really examining, the information that's presented to us, that's around about us. Because, I mean, you probably find that a lot of that information, I don't want to say is just outright false. Some of it will be, um, but a lot of it is tailored, very carefully tailored. Um, and quite a lot were given very select facts about a certain situation, and we're not given the whole story unless we choose to seek it out. So this, I suppose, speaks to me of the dangers of just looking at what the information that's presented to you, just sitting back and expecting the facts to be presented to you. It's important that we go out and we seek those facts for ourselves. False safety. Okay. So, I mean, the scene here is actually really nice. It almost looks like just a normal, kind of a non-zombie-ish scene. A kind of a nice street, albeit it looks a bit quieter than what you would expect it to be. Um, and of course, like title being false safety. So it's just this. I suppose this card might come up as a warning to us. It might be telling us, the situation that you think that you're walking into that is safe is actually not, or you maybe need to spend some more time looking at your environment, looking at the situation, looking at the space that you've built for yourself and thinking, right, does this really serve me, or is there something that I'm not seeing here? Fear. So, I mean, fear is a big concept, and just in human nature. Something that we spend a lot of our time running from, and repelling. trying to overcome um, fear. I think it's not something that we should be a slave to, and it's not something that we should completely give into and be controlled by, but it has its place. Our fears are there for a reason. Our fears are part of our, it's part of our unconscious almost. It's part of our deeper selves. It's, when the hairs stand up on your arms, quite often that's your body or the universe or your body or whatever you want to call it, telling you like, you know, you're in a dangerous situation here. You know, when that fear kicks in, that's happening for a reason. Um, and whilst we should never be a slave to that, whilst we should also engage not just the unconscious, the fears, the emotional kind of a part of it, we should of course engage our conscious minds and analyze and assess the situation. That's always something that we should be doing. But with that said, I do take the view that fears are there to be listened to. At least it's a factor that should be taken into account. Fuel, something we all need. Our fuel as humans is food and water, um, but pretty much everything needs its own form of fuel in order to work. So if this comes up, then maybe it's asking us to look at, you know, the input, look at how we're nourishing our bodies. Is there a way that we could be doing that, better or more or less or whatever? Um, or if the question is about a certain situation, if it's about, oh, I had an argument with my friends, what's the issue? If fuel comes up, then you might want to have a conversation about, well, what started it, what's actually feeding into this, what's caused it in the first place. That seems to be what needs to be addressed. Yeah, if you address what's fueling the fire, then you'll be able to control the fire. Hiding, really kind of a peaceful scene here. I really love the colours in this card. Um, so hiding, I suppose, is kind of what it says on the tin. Um, Hiding can be a way of protecting yourself. It can be a way of removing yourself from a dangerous situation. But if you're finding that you're spending all of your days hiding, then that's maybe something that you need to look at. You know, we don't want to spend all of our time, all of our resource, all of our energy hiding ourselves from a certain situation because that situation then has power over us. You know, if I am, what's a good example? So I live in Scotland. In Scotland, we like to, I suppose, it's a bit of a running joke and we exaggerate, but it does rain a hell of a lot here in Scotland. If I were to decide that every time it rains, I'm just going to get indoors and stay indoors until the rain goes off, and my aim is to never be outside when the rain is on. Well, I'm kind of a limiting my quality of life there because, like I say, it does rain a hell of a lot in Scotland. So rather than hiding away from it, maybe I need to find a way to deal with it. Maybe I need to get myself a good umbrella or a good rain jacket. So is that if I do find myself out in the rain, then I can deal with it. As opposed to that, if you think of somewhere where it barely ever rains, you know, um, I can't really think of a place off the top of my head, but let's say there's a place that where it only rains 2 times a year, then it's perfectly acceptable to, hide inside whilst it's raining in those places and not come out until the rain stops because, well, it's only happening twice a year and it's not affecting your overall quality of life. Just do you see what I'm getting at here? So I'm using rain as an analogy, but it's like you know, hiding has its place, but like don't let it take control, I suppose. It's the same with fear, same with a lot of things. Inside threat. So in this deck we have inside threat and outside threat, and let me just, I'll look at them together. There we go, there's outside threat. I'm messing up the order here, but I hope ORSI wouldn't mind. Oops. So we've got inside threat and outside threat. Now in the zombie land, the outside threat is the zombies themselves. They have, the idea is if you're in a zombie apocalypse, then you create your safe space, you barricade the zombies out. They then become the outside threat. The inside threat is all of these kind of potions and medicines and stuff that we're putting into our body to, you know, I would assume like save yourself from the zombie virus or whatever. Um, but I suppose the idea is like, in trying to protect yourself from this thing, you may actually be hurting yourself, doing yourself more harm. Okay. So the kind of the zombie idea is a bit of an analogy in that if you think about, broader, more everyday life situations. Um, so maybe think about yourself and your own sense of self-esteem, self-pride. Outside threat might represent other people kind of attacking, being abusive. The inside threat would represent our own kind of negative views of ourselves. Now, and it's true in the card, the outside threat may initially appear more scary. It may appear to be more threatening, but you know, in real, I'm a firm believer that most of the if those of us who suffer with like kind of problems with our self-esteem and our sense of self-worth, most of that is self-inflicted. Most of that is the judgments that we put on ourselves rather than the damage that's done from outside. But that's just my kind of a way of looking at these two cards, the threat cards. The next one is joy. Let's just move that back into the center. So joy for me, I mean, it doesn't, the card itself doesn't scream joy. I suppose if you picture yourself in the middle of a zombie apocalypse and you come across this kind of a old kid's toy, is the way that I'm looking at it, that did represent joy for some child back when. It's a really kind of a sad, nostalgic joy though that I get from this depiction. I don't know if anyone else kind of feels the same about that. Last attempt. So, like balls to the wall, this is the last attempt, last resort. It's all or nothing. Um, so if this comes up in a reading, then maybe this is saying like, you have to kind of a do or die type thing, It's time to throw everything that you've got at this. Um, you know, treat it like this as your last attempt. Like if you can't do it now, then you're never going to do it after type thing. You need to give this your all. This isn't a time for kind of a holding back and having plan Bs and plan Cs and plan Ds and putting some of your eggs in this basket and that basket. This is a time for putting everything that you've got into your endeavour. And I mean, how that plays out will depend on the question, as always. Let go. And I mean that's a really kind of a broad concept of letting go. And again, it's another one where, you know, what it means will depend on the context. But I think there's many things that we could be asked to be let go to let go of. And it's a beautiful card, We see the kind of a doom and gloom down below, and then as we move up, we see this beautiful, don't know if it's the sunrise or if it's some sort of star. I suppose the sun is some sort of star, but it's really nice. So we're being asked to kind of let go of, I suppose, past pains and move on into this kind of a new sunrise. So again, I mean these two cards together, these two cards together are very kind of a Ten of Swords to me, you know. Um, so this is like the first half of the Ten of Swords where we kind of we let go of all of the pain that we've been through, you know. Um, it's the part where we kind of tell ourselves, right, I've healed now, and now is the time to move on, and then we move on into this new beginning. Okay. There's a really nice quote, and I mentioned it when Deanne was flipping through these cards in her live. Um, and the quote is, "New beginnings are often disguised as painful endings." So I thought that was really nice and tied in really nicely with the Ten of Swords. So the idea of letting go and then letting the new beginning take hold. Overwhelmed. So again, this is something that I'm sure we can all relate to. Um, the idea of being overwhelmed, emotionally overwhelmed, psychologically overwhelmed. Um, I suppose the lesson in a card like this, in a situation like this, is overwhelm comes from a high energy, high emotional energy, high psychological energy, and it's all about how we channel that energy. Okay, so where we find ourselves overwhelmed, our not our job, but our lesson, our task is to try and take that energy that we're directing inward at ourselves and channel that into something more productive or something that's not going to kind of destroy ourselves from the inside out. Possibilities. Really nice, positive, happy looking card. I suppose like full type energy, isn't it? It's kind of like that, you know, take a leap, see what could happen. Point of view. So this makes me think of the tower, but not the tower in Tarot, the tower in Lenormand. Um, so you're removing yourself from society, from the kind of a hustle and bustle from the situation, and you're doing that in order to gain insight, gain a kind of an overview of the land, and to better see the way forward, the way to progress. All right, and we really get that in this kind of a tower here. All right, we're removing ourselves from the road in order to see, where it's leading us. Prepared. Fail to prepare is to prepare to fail. Okay, so in the context of the kind of a zombie apocalypse land, this is tinned food that's all being like kind of saved up, um, shows that we are prepared when the zombie apocalypse hits. But just in general, it, you know, if this is coming up for someone, depending on the question, let's say they're asking a question like, you know, I, I've been for 10 job interviews now and I can never seem to get anywhere with them. What is my issue? What's happening here? Well, if this card is coming up, then maybe it's telling them they need to spend a lot more time on the preparation side of it. Let's look at your CV, um, like how well do you know your CV? How detailed is it? How relevant is it? When did you last update it? Um, is it one of these CVs that has like 2 pages on your school qualifications and then only a wee couple of lines on your work experience? You know, that kind of a thing. Looking at the CV and then how much time are they spending, like kind of a preparation wise in terms of looking at the company that they're going to work for? You know, how tailored is their presentation to the job that they're going for? you know. So it's that kind of a thing. Um, Preparation is a really important thing in life. It's something that we all have to do. Um, on the flip side of it, there is such a thing as trying to be too prepared. You know, some of us can really kind of hold ourselves back with perfectionism. So if this is coming up in a kind of a, this is what not to do type thing, what am I doing too much of? If it's too prepared, then maybe you're spending too much time trying to kind of plan out the perfect approach, and you're never actually putting any energy into doing the thing. So prepared. We then have resilience. Um, so resilience, there's an expression, uh, nothing worth. Oh, hang on, let me get it right now. um, Something like nothing worth fighting for is ever easy, or something like that. You know, the point is, if it's worth going for, if it's something that's really kind of going to fulfill you, then it's generally not going to be very easy to get to. The point, the reason that I bring that up is because it makes me think of resilience. Um, Resilience is about our ability to heal, our ability to bounce back from setbacks. Our ability to overcome obstacles. Um, and it's it's something that, you know, in my experience, life asks of us quite a lot. Um, Life can be tough. Life can be quite difficult. And how resilient we are is quite often what's going to determine how successful we are. All right. How we deal with challenges that come up, that's more often than not going to determine our success in a particular endeavour. Because if resilience doesn't come into play, if our resilience isn't tested in what we're doing, then that means we aren't challenging ourselves. Okay, that means the thing that we're doing isn't asking anything different of us, isn't challenging us. And I can only speak for myself, but I know that if I'm not challenged, then I get bored quite easily, and quite quickly I'll find myself looking for something different again. So challenge is important to me, and so it's important that I can be resilient. Um, and that's not something that comes easy to me. Um, I'm quite happy for an easy life, but I suppose it's just about kind of I suppose just overcoming that point of view. Um, and yeah, having the fight in us to fight through those obstacles to be resilient. Rest. Very kind of a four of swords feel to this one. The rest card. So sometimes the answer is the opposite of resilience. All right. Sometimes we can find ourselves going at the problem and at the problem and at the problem, and not finding any solutions, not finding any way forward. And quite often the reason is because we're looking at it the wrong way. And what's needed is for us to withdraw. We need to come back. We need to, you know, take a step back, to like take a rest, sleep on the issue. All right, let our unconscious minds unravel it during our sleep and come back to it with fresh eyes in the morning or later on or whatever. And quite often, just that time away from the issue is what's needed in order to come up with a new solution. So there's value quite often in resting, and retreating from the battle and taking time away, um, and regenerating your energy. Safety. Safety is something that we all need to have in some form or other. Lots of us are lucky in that we have a roof over our head, we have food on the table, um, we have people around about us that make us feel safe. We have a safe space, whether that's a literal physical space or like a space that's created through a community. But that's something that energizes our root chakra. That's something that we need. Um, and when we don't have that safety, when we're looking over our shoulder, when we're kind of on edge constantly, we start to suffer. We have problems. So safety is a big one, and it's something that we really need to make sure that we're observing for ourselves. Sign. So we can look at this in a few ways, I suppose. I mean, a sign could be like just so I'm assuming what we see here is we see a bloody handprint. It might be like a bloody handprint on a wall in this zombie apocalypse land. Um, Now that'll have a kind of a common meaning amongst survivors. It might be that people live here. It might be warning like don't go in here. This place is crawling with zombies. Um, but it's that kind of that communication. Um, you might also think of a sign as like being more of a kind of a like signs as in like signs in the skies and um, omens and intuitive signs, that kind of a thing. So I'd imagine like this card could be interpreted in different ways, just depending when it's coming up and how it hits you at the time and what the question is and such. Skill. So I was talking earlier on when we had the brain card, the use it card, about our kind of skills as humans. We we're have the natural ability to um, to take action and to create, to influence the world around about us, to use our intellect and our knowledge and our wisdom in order to problem solve and understand the situations around about us, and to of course to form relationships, to have those emotional connections with people, um, and to kind of a really create this kind of a form of safety and community, like I was saying, and just in the last cards, this safety and community through those relationships that we otherwise wouldn't perhaps have had. So these are our kind of a natural skills as humans, but everyone is different. Everyone has different skills. You have a particular skill set, and it'll differ to mine. Um, so, like, just for example, like one of the skills that I have is I'm quite a logical brain. I've got a degree in maths. Um, Maths is something that comes quite naturally to me. That's one of my skills. Not everyone has that skill. Equally, I've got no skill when it comes to English literature. So that's something that I've always kind of struggled with. That developing comprehension, being able to kind of read between the lines, that kind of a thing, pick up on subtleties, on hints, and that's just never been something that I've been very good at. But like I say, we all have a different skill set, and that's an amazing thing. Um, the world is better for being a diverse place. And we need to think about how we all come together, what skills we all bring to the table, and how we can utilise them as a whole in order to kind of build bridges and build a way forward. Solution. So it's funny because this is very similar to one of the other cards, to inside threat, isn't it? Very, very similar. So for me, the solution is the cure. It's the remedy, the medicine, the thing that's going to stop a particular situation from going on. It can also speak to the solution of a particular problem. Okay. So again, you're thinking about the question that your person's asked you, and right, how does that, how does the solution card fit in with that? It's interesting. I'll be interested to see how this reads when it comes up in a reading. I'm actually going to have a look at the guidebook here and see what it says. So it says solution, positive change. Finally, the scientists finally found the cure. Who even knew that would be possible? Definitely not any of the zombie book authors previously publishing about the subject. As soon as the vaccine drops and people get it, you'll be able to sleep better because you'll know you can't turn into one of those stinky, noisy killer creatures. Life could become normal again, whatever that normal means now. There are also some whispers about developing a cure for the infected, but that might just be wishful thinking, but maybe not. Time to stay positive and away from zombies. It wouldn't be too smart running around without any protection now, would it? Wait until it's safe to go outside and meet others. Some might be infected without even realising. So this is, a really positive card. When you look at the guidebook, this is a really positive card that speaks about positive change and a real turning point. And I suppose if you think about what it is in the midst of a zombie apocalypse, I mean, we know exactly what it is because we're going through a pandemic right now, and we've, we're now over that kind of a point where we've found a vaccination, and we've got most people vaccinated now, and we're starting to be able to open life up as it was. Um, So I suppose it represents that kind of a turning point and that move towards positive change and more positive times. Toxicity. And you'll see this is the same as what's on the back. So, I mean, obviously, toxicity literally means, something that's toxic. The toxicity is how toxic something is. And we're thinking of, toxins, things that attack what is a toxic again? Is it something that attacks the biological processes of the body? But when we say toxicity, we generally, in this day and age, we generally tend to mean like talking about how toxic a person is. Um, so to me, I think of toxicity in terms of someone being nasty, someone, being negative towards other people, that kind of toxicity. Treat. So again, a nice wee positive card. We've got a nice clean drink of water in the midst of this zombie apocalypse. Where, I would imagine you've got to be really careful what you're taking in, being careful what you're drinking, that it's not contaminated, it's not dirty. Um, so this represents a nice treat, something positive, a nice gesture maybe. Um, just something that kind of brings a bit of brightness back into your life when, perhaps things have been quite tough. Turning. So this is after you've been bitten, that process of turning. And obviously in the context of, the zombie world, that's a really negative thing. It represents being turned into a zombie, being turned into, your worst fear, the very thing that you've been running away from. I think just in general, if this card comes up, it doesn't necessarily need to be negative. It makes me think of transformation, of change, you know, metamorphosis, shape shifting. So the ability to, um, to have different sides to you, but and to have a different point of view, to have a different, um, yeah, a different point of view, and just to let change take hold and see where it leads, that type of thing. And this is the last card, is warning. Okay, so this could be warnings from, you know, conscious warnings, warnings from people and, things round about us. It could also be listening to those warnings that are coming from within yourself. Okay, listening to your own intuition. Um, if something doesn't feel right, if something doesn't feel safe, then it's probably not that type of idea. Okay, guys, so I've been shuffling this, and it's an absolutely tremendous deck to shuffle. This S30 standard smooth cardstock is really nice. It is, a smaller card deck than what I'm used to working with in tarot, but I can still get a good riffle shuffle on it. It even riffle shuffles, if you've got smaller hands. Um, it even riffle shuffles the other way because it's a bit of a bigger size. You can riffle shuffle it that way. That works quite well. Um, Overhands really nicely as well, obviously. And, long ways as well. So I want to do a wee sample reading with the deck. Now, I was thinking about what spread I could show or what spread I could use. So this is a smaller deck. I think there's maybe about 40-ish cards in it. I can't actually remember exactly how many there are now. Um, but it's a smaller deck, and as such, we might be quite resistant to using, bigger spreads. So like 10 card spreads, we might not be as willing to use for this with this, which is kind of understandable. Um, but there is a 5 card spread that I think gives a lot of insight on a situation, and that can answer pretty much any question. Um, that this obviously is 5 cards, so it's a bit smaller and it's a bit more palatable when you've got a deck like this. Um, so let's do that. And this is kind of a bit of a Celtic Cross knockoff, I'll be totally honest and say. So this is very heavily based on the Celtic Cross, as you're going to see. So let's think of a question. So let's say, for example, someone comes to your table and says, I'm having trouble finding a new job. I really need to find a new job. To get a new job, what kind of insight do the cards have on my situation as it stands? So The first card goes in the centre of the cross, and that is going to be an insight into the kind of a present situation. Okay, the present position, the situation that the person is asking about. Second card is going to go underneath, and that is going to be the basis, how it all began, how it all started. It's funny because I don't know how many of you really watch zombie films, but how it all started is one of the things that's quite often not really addressed in the zombie kind of a world. Um, I know certainly in what's it called now, The Walking Dead. In that series, I don't think we ever really find out how the whole thing started. Um, so this is it's an interesting one to have in a kind of a spread using a zombie oracle, but nonetheless, for the purposes of the question and any question your questioner might bring to you, I think that it's important to really kind of examine the basis. The next one is going to go behind it, and that is going to be looking at the past, so particular events that are still feeding in to the present situation. Next one's above is going to be the aims, what you're trying to get out of it, what you're actively working towards, the actions that you're taking. That is really not good in terms of the light. Let's do that. And then lastly, we have on the right hand side is, where the situation is headed. Okay, so let me just move these to the side for now. And let's start with the present situation. So remember, our person has asked us, I'm struggling to find a new job. I need to get a new job. I'm struggling to find one. What insights do we have on the situation? So we've got the sign card coming up. We've got the sign card. So right away, I want to be telling them, right, okay, well, are you looking at job adverts? Okay, you might actually find that the right job for you is going to kind of happen by you without, when you're not exactly looking for it. It might be something that you see when you're driving past in the street, or when you're out walking the dog. You might see an advertisement that says, staff wanted, staff needed. You might be in, I don't know, McDonald's um, ordering your triple cheeseburger, and you see a sign saying staff wanted here, and you've always wanted to work at McDonald's. It's that kind of a thing. So this to me is telling the person to pay attention to what's going on around about them. You know how the way the clover in Lenormand works, where it's like, the signs are there, the positivity is there around about you. You just need to be kind of on the lookout for it. You need to be conscious of it. It's not going to kind of um, walk up all neatly tied in a bow, and present itself to you. You kind of need to be looking out for it. So that's what I want to say to them about that. The basis card. Okay, so bite mark. That's interesting. So why might bite mark be the basis for them looking for a new job? So I wonder if they're still tied to their previous job. And I wonder if that's what's presenting them with difficulty in finding a new one. Okay. If bite mark is coming up, it's thinking about the impact of something, they've been bitten in the past, or there's in some way marked, and it's preventing them from moving on. So maybe that's something we want to examine with them. Are you in some way tied down to the job that you already have, or are you tied down in some other way with some sort of responsibility that's stopping you, so whether consciously or subconsciously. So maybe you're, and sometimes it's we need to unpack that stuff, because sometimes we tell ourselves that we're not able to do such and such, and then when we really look at it, we're making excuses. You know, oh, I can't go for that job because I don't know, because I don't like the color purple. Well, let's look at it. Why do you not like the color purple? Where does that come from? Oh, well, I don't know. I just don't really like it. And it's like, right, okay, we'll measure it up. Like, how important is your aversion to the color purple versus you being able to get a job and provide for yourself, and or potentially if you've got family to provide for. To me, this is asking us to hone in on the what's actually feeding into the situation, what's actually causing the difficulty. Past events, so we've got fear coming up. So I mean, maybe there is a bit of a fear. Maybe it's fear of change, fear of throwing yourself into something new. I mean, let's face it, fear of just a new job in general, that can be quite a scary thing um, to undergo, to go through in general. The fact that it's coming up in the past situation, so maybe this person has gone at something new in the past and they've had a negative experience and they're now kind of they've got the fear of that happening again is still playing on the present. What's the aim? The aim is company. So you can take that as you will. Maybe that they're they're looking to be working amongst like-minded people. Maybe they're looking to find their team, the other people like them that think and work in the same way that they do. Or maybe it's as literal as what it says. Maybe they want to work for a company. So that's their aim. Their aim is to find, to find other people, to find like-minded people and to work together as a team with someone. What does the future have in hold? So we've got fake news. So that sign that's perhaps around about you in the present, you need to really watch out and analyse that because there's a lot of false information around about you right now, and you want to be careful, kind of just how far you take that. You don't want to just go on it in blind faith and say, oh well, Chris pulled that oracle card for me, so he said that I have to watch out for a sign, and oh, what do you know? All of a sudden I've seen this sign, so that must be it. No, no, you need to kind of engage those conscious processes. You need to be really kind of looking deep into that, and making sure that it is for you. Um, so yeah, that's a wee 5 card spread that I think is quite helpful just for kind of getting an overview of a situation. Um, Another spread that I find really good um, is the 3 card spread, uh, and it can, in my experience, it can pretty much answer any question. It's the situation, advice, and outcome spread. Okay. So depending on the question, most questions will either ask you about a situation, or they'll ask you for advice on something, or they'll say what is going to happen, what does the future hold, what is going to happen when such and such and such. Okay, so this is a really good a really good spread for answering anything like that. Plus, you're able to kind of give the advice and give the overview of the situation as well. Okay. So yeah. Anyway, I've harped on enough, I think. Thank you so much. If you're still here, thanks so much for watching. I hope that this has been helpful and that you've enjoyed it. Like I say, I will leave a link in the description to where you can purchase this deck and support our lovely ORSI. And definitely have a look at the guidebook as well, because ORSI will probably give a lot better insight into the kind of interpretations and meanings than what I just have. But this at least, if nothing else, you can speed me up and then have a kind of a flip through the cards, I suppose. But thanks very much, everyone. Take care, and I'll hopefully see you all later. Bye bye.